Minister, the 2012 budget is being the seventh budget you have prepared. Was it a bigger challenge for you since it's the first budget as a majority government?
It was a bigger challenge because we were looking at the longer term. We are a majority government, so we have the responsibility to look more years ahead, which is what we did in this budget as an economic plan for Canada.
But were you able to fulfill that anything you were not when it is a minority government?
Yeah, in a minority government, we're always had to be concerned, naturally, about whether or not the government would survive, and were there any measures in the budget that the opposition parties would find totally unacceptable. If so, we would be into a general election. So it's a different approach when one has a majority government. One is able to look farther down the road, which actually I think is healthy for the country.
The new budget proposed a harsh cut in public safety and defense. So does that mean the national security is not that important?
No, there are lots of resources, lots of money spent on national defense and on public safety in Canada. They're large budgets, so the reductions look large in terms of dollars, but in terms of percentages, they're in line with what we were doing with other departments in Canada.
You know, the OASH issue will not be very popular among the public. Why do you think it's necessary?
Well, it's necessary so that that benefit, that social security program will be there when the middle-aged people today are older. We have to make sure that it's sustainable over time. So it won't come into force until 2023 and then phased into 2029. So it's a long way away. No one who's 54 years old or older will be affected by this change. But the reality is, in the developed economies of the world, all of them are moving to increase the age because, fortunately, people are living longer and healthier.
Let's talk about MP pension. People think it's too generous with 6 years service and receive full pension, and also they contribute one part, and also taxpayers contribute 5 parts. So why didn't you fix the MP pension issue in this budget?
Well, we're going in that direction. It's the same with public servants. A lot of people think that the pension plans for public servants are too generous, that they don't contribute enough to their own pensions. And a lot of people feel that way, as you just said, with respect to parliamentarians, both senators and members of the House of Commons. So we're going to fix that. We're going to start next year in 2013 moving up the contribution toward 50%, and we will get it to 50% by 2016.
Under today's economic situation, why do you encourage people go to the States to shop?
People go to the United States to shop, whether I encourage them or not. That's the reality. Listen, we needed those limits to get with the times. They weren't realistic. They hadn't been changed in some time, and so now we're making them comparable with the United States so that Canadians have the same benefits that Americans have in terms of cross-border shopping.
You know, oil prices affect our daily life, and people complaining that, like, in the past 10 years, the oil prices has been double up. So they urge the government to reduce the tax on oil and gas. What is your response?
Well, we don't affect the price of oil and gas. The price is set by international markets. And the Americans are complaining that they're paying a lot more for fuel. So are the British, so are the French, so is everyone around the world, because the world price of that commodity has gone up, largely because of demand. The emerging economies in the world are using a lot more oil.
And after the budget, most likely reviews are positive. So how do you balance both sides' need?
Well, I can't help with reviews. I mean, what we tried to do in the budget is have the balance between jobs and growth, encouraging economic growth in the economy and therefore creating jobs, and fiscal prudence, getting to a sustainable position where we have a balanced budget, where we have a surplus, where we can reduce taxes more, pay down debt, and make sure Canada is stable and solid.
And this is our last question. Which part of the budget you think will stimulate the economy most and create jobs?
The largest initiative in the budget is rebuilding the fleet of the Canadian Coast Guard. This is over $5 billion of construction work. All of it will be done in Canada, and it'll be done over the course of the next 11 years. So that's a very long-term shipbuilding process. Will produce a lot of jobs.
Thank you, Minister.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Minister, how do you feel about the newly released budget, and what is the major differences in funding immigration policy from last year?
I'm very optimistic because of the new economic action plan focuses on job creation and long-term prosperity for Canadians. It makes some of the important decisions to make sure that our budget can be sustained and our growth can be sustained in the long term. On immigration, this is an historic budget. It helps us to move from the very slow and rigid immigration system of the past to one that will be fast and flexible. For too long, immigrants have seen their unemployment level in Canada much higher than the general population and have had trouble finding good jobs at their skill level. And for too long, people overseas have waited for several years just for a decision on their application to come to Canada. This budget allows us to move to a just-in-time, fast system so that within a couple of years, applicants for immigration will get an answer within a year. They'll be able to come to Canada, and we will be ensuring that those who come have the skills that are needed in the Canadian economy to find good jobs or start successful businesses right away.
You have proposed a lot of changes in our immigration policy earlier. How did this budget help you implement planned changes?
Well, one of the biggest problems I've been trying to resolve is the problem of large backlogs in our immigration system, which have created huge wait times. When we came to office, there were 680,000 people waiting in the skilled worker program. That's the point system, for up to 8 years for a decision on their application. We've taken some measures to reduce that by limiting the number of new applications that we get, but it hasn't been enough because we still have about 480,000 people waiting in the backlog. That's why yesterday's budget announced that we will refund the applications that we received prior to 2008. These are old cases where people have been waiting for years, and we're probably never going to get to their cases anyway. So it's only fair for them that we be honest, return their application with the fee, and that allows us to almost eliminate the backlog so that within a year or so, we will have a very fast system. That's a major improvement.
The opposition party claims that this budget has no action plan to create more jobs and also nothing to stimulate the economy. What is your response?
Well, in fact, the whole plan is about job creation, and we have made important investments in the past few years, which has resulted in the best job creation record in the developed world. Since the end of the global recession in 2009, we have seen the creation of 610,000 net new jobs in Canada, 80% of which are full-time jobs. And in fact, one of the biggest problems in our economy now is a shortage of skilled labor to fill many jobs that are going unfilled. So yes, it's true that in some areas we have unemployment, too many people unemployed, and that's unfortunate. But it's also true that in some regions and industries, we don't have enough workers for the jobs that are available. So this budget seeks to, through our immigration reforms in part, to better align the immigrants we receive with the jobs that are available in the Canadian economy today.
Let's talk about some immigration issue. There was a yacht carrying a dozen of refugees and capsized outside Nova Scotia. So what can we do to prevent this kind of tragedies?
Very good question. We're not absolutely sure what was going on with that vessel, but there are some initial reports from our security agency that it may have been a human smuggling operation. And this underscores what I have been saying for a long time, that human smuggling is a dangerous, life-threatening business that kills thousands of people every year around the world, because the smugglers don't care about human life, they only care about profit. And this underscores why we must take strong action to fight against the human smugglers who would seek to violate Canada's immigration laws and abuse our generosity while putting at risk the lives of their passengers. That's why we have introduced the bill to crack down on human smuggling and on bogus refugee claimants. It's Bill C-31 in Parliament right now that would put 10-year prison sentences for human smugglers and would also say to their customers that if they come to Canada and they're refugees, they won't be able to sponsor family members for 5 years. We're trying to send a strong message to the smugglers and their customers. If they want to come to Canada, come the legal way, like everyone else. Apply for a visa, apply for immigration, go through the same system, don't cut the corners, and if you do, there can be a risk to your life like we've seen this week.
Regarding to the new pre-arrival education credential assessment, some argue that many immigration agencies are already doing this kind of similar assessment. So what do you think? What is the difference?
Well, then those agencies would be invited to apply as the recognized assessment agencies. You see, what we're looking at is to identify some agencies who have expertise in assessing foreign qualifications and education, so that both Canada and applicants for immigration can have a good idea about their chances of finding a job or getting licensed to work in a regulated profession like doctors, lawyers, and engineers. Too many professionals have come to Canada unable to get their qualifications recognized or to obtain their professional license. And too many of those people end up working in what we call survival jobs, you know? And this is unfair to them. So the new system will say, if you want to immigrate to Canada, that's great. First, please contact this government recognized assessment agency and have them assess your degree, your education, and your professional certification, so that Canada will know, and you will know, whether you have a decent chance of getting your license and being able to work in your profession in Canada.
This is our last question. I heard that you are most travel minister, most diligent minister, and you work almost every weekend. And also you are most accomplished minister that you have new policy almost every week. So what motivated you work so hard?
That's a good question. I feel it's like a great blessing to have a chance to be of service, to make changes, and I don't want to waste any time. I want to get as much done while I have the opportunity. And I think, you know, you work so hard to get elected, to become a government. When you have this opportunity, I want to make the most of it. And I'm someone who's a little bit restless, maybe. I'm always restless to get things done, and we have achieved a lot. But this year, 2012, is going to be a really transformative year in terms of our immigration reforms. We've done a lot of work for 3 years leading up to this point, and we'll be bringing forward a number of measures this year that I think, when I'm retired and I look back on my achievements, I really believe that I will be able to see that as a result of those changes, that immigrants are doing much better in the Canadian economy, and the Canadian economy is doing better as a result. That's my dream, and that's what I'm working toward.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
Thank you.